All right. Let's go through today and answer a few questions from some of the people out there. I pulled on like 5 questions or so. By the way, if you're just joining us, let me know you're here. Say hi. Um, Give me a shout out in the room. All right, question number one. I watched a video on pricing a product for the government was good, but I think pricing a service would require a whole new set of specifics. Also, I was wondering how to offer a service to the government that they need, but haven't realized this yet. All right. Oh, I can't believe I don't have this handy. Wow. Um, I wasn't prepared today. All right. So when you're offering a service to the government that they need, I don't have here. But there's something called the SBIR, and if you go, um, I normally have my book present. I don't have my book around. I guess I was showing someone here. I don't have it in my presence. But if you go, I have it in my book, $1 Billion Playbook. But it's called S as in Sam, B as in boy, I like, ooh, I don't know, idiot, R like Ray. But SBIR is where you can go in and actually offer services to the government that they may or may not have realized they need. Um, but chances are, whatever you believe that the government thinks they need or you don't see it out there, if you go to the SBIR website, it's the information is there. They're already the government is exploring a lot of stuff that they haven't rolled out yet, and that's the place to start to go in there. In fact, what I'll do, I will post a link in the show notes page regarding the SBIR site. It's also, like I said, if you go in my if you have my book, it's in their book. It lists that site, and there's another additional site that's in conjunction with it. All right, but that's the place to go where you want to offer products or services to the government that you don't see currently out there in the marketplace. Question number two. First of all, I'd like to say thank you for all this wonderful information. I'm only on day 5 of 12. It's been amazing so far, but may be suggesting an idea for something you already have so far, but here's a shot. You mentioned in one of your videos there's no blacklist for state and local contractors. So how would you be able to research those types of companies prior to considering partnering relationship? Well, again, when we're talking about the state and local contractors, unfortunately, I mean, their blacklists do exist. They don't put people on them. So it's really difficult to know if the company is good or if they're not so good. One of the things that I would say, one of the tricks that I use that I tell people all the time is when you're looking for who you want to work for relationships. Obviously, depending upon like this person says contractors, right? So depending upon the size and the scale of the company, I mean that's how I would determine whether or not I want to work for them. The fact that most people, even if you decide you want to work for a company in the federal arena, most people would not even know to go and look for a blacklist. I mean, just people don't do that type of due diligence and working with partnerships. Not saying that you shouldn't, but people just they don't do that. So, one of the standards, the metrics is for me, I would say is find out if again now just it depends on the relationship. If they are a prime contractor, it's very easy to find out if people have on their projects, if anyone's filed any liens against their projects. If anyone's filed any liens against their projects, then I would say Tracy Bird, by the way, stop distracting me. If anyone's filed any liens on their projects, that would say they're a bad prime contractor. In terms of if you see there are companies out there that are constantly trying to sue them, then obviously I would be leery of that type of contractor. But for the most part, if you judge them and immediately based on size, it's going to be really difficult to know or understand the ethics of the person or the moral characteristics behind them. That's going to be something you're going to have to kind of feel your way through when you sit down and you meet with them and you talk to their staff and their team members. But I promise you, if you go out there and you look at who represents that firm, kind of like the example I would say, if you go to Starbucks and you look at the people at Starbucks, how they treat you versus the people at, say, Church's Chicken, how they treat you, it's a little bit different. I would look at, okay, if they say, hey, we're both $1 billion companies, well, let's look at the staff and the people and how they respond to, like, say, for example, Apple, as opposed to employees at Winn-Dixie. And you could see that the difference in the way that the employees carry themselves versus, and that's a representation to me of the company and who they are. All right. I know you guys like that example. I just it came to my brain because I mean when I think about bad customer service, I think about Winn Dixie. I think about those kind of places like Church's Chicken and stuff. They're horrible. Who's in the room? Sean, welcome. Uh, how are you guys today? No, I am not. You tell us you want a legal separation pending a divorce. No, there's no legal separation, Tracy. I'm still gonna be here for you guys. Don't worry about it. Number three, on the pricing schedule, there are only two clans, one for each line item, then a total. Where can I put my markup? Please advise. Thanks for all you do. If there are two clans, I would say I would mark up on each clan. And the reason why is because whenever you're doing a contract, the government has the right to be able to assign just one clan and not assign the other clan. So if you mark up one and not the other, if they elect to not do that second clan, then you're kind of screwed. So I would mark up both clans. Now, what I would not do is let's say, let me pull this together. By the way, does everyone know what a clan is? Probably not. A clan is when you're doing a RFP with the government, and they essentially what they do is, hold on, let me go to a big screen. Hold on 1 second. All right, there you go. All right, so that's a clan. So clan looks like this. When you're pricing, you want, and then right there is where you're going to put in your price, right, for the government. So essentially, what will happen is the government they have the right to decide to not exercise one of the clans and to exercise the other clan. So if you don't, again, like I said, if you mark up one and not the other, then you run into the situation where you're not going to be compensated for all the work that you do. Um, but what I would not do is sometimes they'll ask you to add them together and give a total dollar amount. I would not then mark up that total dollar amount, right? So I would mark up Clen 1, Clen 2, and just add them together. And then that cumulative total would be my total that I bid the job. Okay? Oops, sorry. Question number four. I've watched several of your YouTube videos, and I'm very interested in starting a small business along with my sister doing government contracting. Before we decide to move forward, I wanted to ask you, could we start and maintain a small business contracting with the government with only the two of us, no business partner or employees, being only a broker? We do not have any goods or services to sell. Do you have any information on this type of government contracting? All right, this is what we call consulting. I hate the idea of saying broker. Please, and this question is commonly asked. That's why I put it up there. Not that a lot of you guys don't already know the answer to this stuff, but the point about posting this question was do not refer to yourself as a broker. If you refer to yourself as a broker, that in a lot of circles is like a negative connotation, and it shows that you inherently don't provide any value to the deal. And so a lot of people don't like to work with brokers because they're thinking you're just brokering a deal. But for example, what I do and I tell people all the time, I mean, as a consultant, I actually add additional value. A lot of times in my industry and a lot of other industries, what you'll find is that people out there, companies out there, they don't like to do paperwork. They like to do their job, they like to do their task. But if any one of you has ever won a contract with the federal government, you'll find out this is very paperwork laden heavy. So a lot of times the value, a broker would be someone that just took and you found a contract and you assign that contract to the person. You have to add some value in the deal, otherwise you won't be around very long. So I don't like the idea of people referring to themselves as broker, and that's the reason why I posted this question. I would rather that you actually create a business entity so that you can start helping other entities or companies get contracts, and then you will become ultimately the responsible party for ensuring that that contract goes from start to finish and fulfilling that agreement. So what does that mean? If something were to go wrong, it would fall on your shoulders. That is, like, for example, with the prime contractors, that's what they do. And in terms of what we call it in construction, it would be like a CM at risk or someone like a representation of the owner. But there is risk because again, you would then put the contract in your name. That's what I would suggest for someone like that. The other alternative, if you were just you and your sister, is like we looked at before. I mean, I have videos on how to make money in government contracts without actually doing work in it. So like FedBid, and some of you guys have already seen that video. And there's other places like that they offer services. I don't know them offhand. There's other places where they offer services that you can actually, I'm sorry, goods where you can actually resell those goods to the government. I have them on that video. I think there's 6 ways that I show in that video. There's also some places in my book that I talk about this information. But for me, the biggest part of this question, I know because I know a lot of you guys are out there and you're in that situation. Please, for me, do not refer to yourself as a broker because that's a really fast way to get kicked out of a room, a really fast way to get people to turn you off and not even receive anything that you're saying. All right, so just eliminate that lingo from your vocabulary because, like I said, it has a negative connotation to it, and we don't want you like we all know this. We may only get one time to make a first impression. We don't want you to ruin that relationship saying that you're a broker or even thinking along those lines because it may slip and it may come out. And like for someone like me, if you approach me and I heard that you used that word broker, I'd be turned off immediately. All right, so that's what I would do. Question number 5, and this one is a long question. Hey, Ronald, welcome. Eli, welcome. That's cool how you did that checkbox. Question number 5. My name is Richard. And I just want to start off by saying, thank you. I really appreciate what you're doing. Your YouTube channel, I've received some great tips from your video. My biggest concern is funding these supplier contracts. I figured until I could land a service contract for engineering, I could land some supply contracts in between to keep revenue coming in. I viewed your video asking a supplier for credit, and that's something I'll keep in mind when seeing who supplies these products. But if I'm bidding on something that will cost them, say, for example, 60,000, will they even take a risk with somebody they've never done business with? Absolutely. We all have to start off by establishing credit from zero. I mean, no one starts by establishing supplier credit with supplier credit. That's the idea of getting it. So, yeah, I mean, to start off with $60,000 credit is a very easy task. If you look at the things that I showed in that video, I mean, I didn't start off with credit. I used references from friends and other people who were in business to basically bump me up and to make me look good in the eyes of the supplier. So if you need $60,000, then you need to find 3 companies or people that can vouch for you that say that they provide that supply credit for you. So yeah, I mean, absolutely, they would take a risk on $60,000. In fact, I believe it was Paige in our Govcon Giants group that asked about. She was going to do the opposite, which I love, which is let me go after the contract and see then after use the contract as leverage to get the supply credit. So that goes to the question number 2. Are there other ways I'll be able to get the product sent to the government before having to come out of my pocket first? So I start bidding on products that will only cost me less first so that I can build supplier trust. Absolutely not. You know, I would, I don't know if because I haven't watched this video in a while, but I don't know if I indicated that to you guys, but my very first supplier credit that I received on my metal buildings, because I had the contract, then I mean it made it. Then they increased my credit line to cover the amount that I needed. So even if let's say even if you can get supplier credit for $5,000 or $10,000, but your order is $60,000, that $5,000 credit coupled with that contract, you put it together, and they're likely to take you all the way up to the amount that you need. So I would not recommend starting off with products that cost you what you can afford. And the reason why I don't recommend this strategy is I had someone that I told this guy, he used to work in a similar office space where I worked at in the same building, and I told him because he was selling materials, and I said, listen, you got to get your supplier credit. You got to get your supplier credit because if you win a contract and you don't establish credit, then you can't fulfill the order. He didn't listen to me. He won a contract. He could not deliver on the contract, and he had to turn it back in. If he had just gotten the minimum credit, then that would have already established a relationship with that company. So, and in his case, because he was sending the products overseas or something like that, there was no way for him to leverage that contract. It was not a United States government contract, which is why the supplier would not accept it to give him a credit line. It was a contract with another country. So, yes, if you're doing work with our United States federal government, then you can leverage that to build upon your credit. I've yet to put a bid down just on FedBid because I want to see if I can secure being able to financially cover my product before placing a bid. And wrong strategy. we talk about fear. We talked about fear. We talked about evolution or dying. You cannot be afraid to go out here and to attempt to bid jobs. You cannot be afraid to go out here and attempt to talk to people. So that I would not recommend to anyone. Do not take inaction because of your insecurity of not being able to particularly financially cover a job. Let me ask you something. If you had a project that, let's say, the job was say $100,000 that you were awarded, and it only cost you $50,000, you're telling me you can't find $50,000 for a job where you're going to make 50,000 in profit? I beg to differ. I'm pretty sure. Matter of fact, you could call me if you have a contract for $100,000, right? And it costs 50,000. I will lend you the $50,000. Okay? Because if you're telling me we can make $50,000 profit just giving them the contract, I don't want to hear that no one, you don't have any friends, family, anyone that can't put up $50,000. So, I don't want to, to me, that's an excuse for doing nothing and not actually taking steps. So, again, if you can get the contract, and again, the worst thing that can happen is if you can't deliver, they cancel the contract. No harm, no foul. But you've made a whole bunch of assumptions, which I believe are poor. And judgment is, first of all, you assume that one, you're going to get the contract. I mean, that's the right up jump. You assume that you're going to get the contract. What about the learning experience? What if you go through the exercise of finding out where people are bidding at so you can understand what the profit margins are? If you go back to where I talked about bidding these contracts in Africa, I told the guy to mark it up 40%. Hell, if he mark up that contract 40%, I'm pretty sure that with that type of markup, that the suppliers will be happy, they'll feel comfortable, and any other person that you decide to bring to the table will be more than comfortable. And then you can get factoring companies, you can get a bank. There's just so many avenues. Hell, you could take out, for that kind of money, you can get a line of credit against your property. I mean, there's just a lot of ways that you can figure this stuff out when the money is guaranteed and secured. But if you don't have a contract and you're just using it as a scapegoat to not participate in this market, then that's a deeper rooted issue that we can't discuss here and we can't cover. And then the last part, before I leave, I just and by the way, I use this because I thought this person had like five different questions in one, and I thought it was really good, so that's why I used all this person's question. Before I leave, I'll just leave you one scenario I ran into. I wanted to place a bid for some headgear. I contacted the supplier, and they would not even give me a quote because they said I had to be registered with their program to be authorized to buy that item, and I need to be bonded for $2 million. Is this something you'll run into with most suppliers? No. It's one person. That's one job, one product. Maybe that particular headgear company already has a relationship with the government. Maybe they already know the bid. Maybe that headgear company already has someone who they want to get the job. Unless you are someone that's in that particular space, then I would either go to another headgear company that provide a comparable product, like what I did with my metal building, or I would say move on to another space. But there are hundreds, there are thousands, of products, of supplies that the government is looking for every day. So don't, because one person said that they can't actually provide it, that doesn't, that's not enough to discourage me. Go back to the example a few videos ago when I said when Trump was in trouble, he reached out to 10 people to help him get out of the situation. Five helped, five said no. So to use one bad scenario as an example to put a blanket assumption over all of the government, I think is just, again, it's fear more than anything else. It's you haven't tried enough. Go out and try to bid on 15 different projects and see if that's the case. I can tell you it's not, because we have people in our Govcon Giants group that are doing this and they're not running to that problem. So I know from personal experiences, because I'm talking with the people out there, the people that are watching this. I know from personal experience that that is not happening. Yeah, maybe on one or two different types of products because they may have relationships. Whenever I worked on a military base, the company that puts in these security systems, they're called Advantar systems. Advantar has an exclusive with the government. So even if they put out a bid, you can't provide the Advantar products. So, I'm not going to say, oh, because Advantar has an exclusive, that guess what, guys? Just give up on your hopes of being able to offer anything to the government. Again, so I say that for all of you out there. If you run into a situation, one little stumbling block, just move on. Don't harp on the fact that one person said something negative, or one person told you that. Remember, this thing is a journey. And so experience the journey, go through it, and that's how, again, like we said, pain plus reflection is progress. So this is not even painful. This is just one of those things. All right. So I would say move on, or you know what you do? Like I said, go find another headgear company, maybe find their competition, and then make sure the competition can meet all those requirements, and then I would offer that to the government. I would actually take and offer the competition for the government, because you know what? You never know. Maybe the government is looking for something that's comparable but cheaper, or comparable but better quality, comparable but faster delivery, comparable but different colors, and that person doesn't offer it. You have no idea until you actually attempt to do these things. So before you guys are reaching out to me saying, making assumptions based on one scenario, one situation, one happening, try it again. Make several attempts. Make a dozen attempts. Same thing goes with, someone reached out to me and said their procurement technical officer, the PTAC, or the small business specialist, they don't come into the office. They couldn't meet with them. Um, and so, if that person didn't meet with you, there are hundreds of more government small business specialists. There's hundreds of more PTech offices. So go to the next one. Don't put yourself in a box because one person or one government representative is not doing their job, or they're poor quality. I have other people. For every one of those stories you tell me about a bad experience, I could tell you another one about a good experience. For every person where you could tell me about the supplier didn't cover it, I could tell you about one where they did. For every, so I mean, I have, and again, this is not my own personal stories. At the point that we're at today, I can tell you stories of other people in the group that have had the equal and opposite reactions and equal and opposite experiences. And I can name them, and they know who they are because they're here, they're listening, they're reaching out to me, they're asking me questions, they're going through these scenarios on a day in and day out basis. Let me, let's see what do we have in the chat room. All right, Natasha, factoring companies may be an option. Absolutely, factoring companies are an option. Ronald, can I bring an associate from an executive temp agency to meet the past experience requirement? Oh yeah, I would definitely. If you have someone who has past experience requirement, an employee, remember, Ron, that's how I got started when I launched my metal building business. The guy who told me about the industry was also my representative. And by the way, I didn't pay him a dollar. He came on as a 1099 contractor. So he came on as an independent contractor, which meant he was only going to get paid once we did a project. But he put up his credentials, his certifications. He put all that up on behalf of my company to qualify me for the stuff. So, all right. Um, Kiana, yes, I can. I don't know how to autograph the book. I haven't figured that out. Maybe you can help me figure out how to do that. Um, Natasha, absolutely. I can tell sometime when I call a vendor that they may not be a vendor, they may not be a vendor I can use. Right, Natasha. Yeah. So once you, yeah. So Natasha made a very good point. Sometimes she calls in a vendor, and that may not be a vendor they can use. Remember, th- every vendor is not necessarily going to be a good vendor. Every vendor is not necessarily going to be a qualified vendor. Maybe that person that is not even qualified to do this stuff, and so they're putting requirements in front of you because they can't actually meet or adhere to the government's stuff. So I wouldn't even worry about that person, that guy. Raymond, welcome. Jerome, welcome. Glad you're learning a lot. Okay, Natasha says, I've had vendors tell me they're going to put in a bid so I cannot buy from them. Absolutely. Yeah, and that's what happens. I mean, if the vendor's going to put in a bid, then you can't, obviously, I wouldn't, you can't, they're not going to give you a number to bid against them. Then they'd be like the company that did that to me, and then I beat them out. So, Natasha says, look for a set aside. My rationale is those set asides are gold mine for us. Yes, absolutely. If you can get a set aside, then I would jump into a set aside. All right. Yeah. So that's what I mean. That's what I would do, guys. It's there's too much opportunity out here. There's too much contracts, too much stuff coming down the pipeline. Um, and like I said, I see it every day because I have members every day emailing me. They're receiving direct solicitations from government agencies. They're being invited to events by government persons. They're out there talking to they've been putting on special lists and private lists by the same people that you're looking at FBO. Oh, by the way, I just I remembered another person's question. We're gonna let me just address this. Let me get out of this screen. All right. Yeah. So actually, someone else emailed me, or they posted online. They said that there was a contract that came out that their friend told them I was a GSA contract. It was like 90 million or 80 million. And the question was, why did this not come out on FedBizOps? And if you go to my website, you'll see on there's a blog post that says that only about 40% of all the contract opportunities are competitively bid. So and the rest of them, like the stuff that I do, it never hits FedBizOps. So I mean, we've already addressed that issue is that half the contracts out there are going and being posted, the other half are not being posted. So when you're wondering, why something's not hitting FedBizOps, again, don't be frustrated, people. Please do not get yourself all in a tight because something didn't hit FedBizOps. Learn how to be the person that's getting the direct contract so that you're now the incumbent and you're the one that everybody's talking about why your contract didn't hit FedBizOps or why it wasn't bid out. Because why? We talk about this. Because there's three different circumstances where the government cannot bid out contracts. Like for example, we talked about it's called mission critical, like in a disaster situation, in a situation where we've got to mobilize people to fight terrorists. I mean, there's many different reasons, and they fall into categories. But mission critical are the words that they like to use. But just know that it's not going to happen, and then keep in mind that you want to be the recipient of those contracts, not the guy sitting up here again, not the guy complaining about why someone else is getting the job and why someone else has the opportunity and then you didn't have it. It doesn't make sense to put everything on FedBizOps. And like I said, the contracts out of all the contracts that I've won, it's only one contract that I've ever received off FedBizOps. The other ones are negotiated contracts, and that's the stuff that I'm trying to teach you how to put yourself in those positions. Let's look at some of the questions before I jump into this goal setting stuff. All right. My wife is interested in starting women-owned business. Would that be a problem if I go into a niche market? Jerome, yeah, go through some of my old videos and stuff. We talk about that. How do I meet solicitation requirement to have X amount of funds in my LLC that I don't have a start yet? I've never seen a contract that requires you to have X funds inside of an organization. I've never seen that before. If you, I Ron, I'd be curious. I think that you're misinterpreting what the requirements are asking. Honestly, um, I would like to see if you have a solicitation that says you have to have $200,000 in your LLC. I want to see with that. I want to see that solicitation. I've never seen anything like that. Um, so I think you're misinterpreting what the requirements are asking. All right. Yeah, networking. No. So in the chat room, someone says networking is very important. That's actually Shawnee within this arena. Mr. Knowledge responds, yes, networking plays a huge part in government contracting. Um, Networking is actually everything in government contracting. It doesn't play a huge part. It's not very important. It is how you win contracts. It's how you become the incumbent. If you decide to play the bid game, you're going to get burned out really quickly trying to constantly be bidding projects. If you don't start establishing relationships with some of these people out there, then you're unless you have a lot of money, unless you have a staff and you can just burn through bidding jobs. A lot of times what you'll see is even when stuff is on FedBizOps, that they'll put a job out for $3 or $4 million and they'll tell you they want you to respond in 5 days. To me, that's saying that they already have someone in mind who they want to give the contract to, and they could not find a way to get around putting it on FedBizOps, so they put it out there, made a really small window, so it made it unfair to any other person trying to bid that job. So again, if you I'm not discouraging people from bidding because bidding is part of your learning experience, right? So bidding the jobs is part of how you learn. It's how you start to understand the numbers and how you start seeing what margins work and what other people are bidding, and you kind of get an idea of for the people who you're competing against and where they're at. But ultimately, you got to get to the contracting officer. Ultimately, you've got to get to the guy who's giving those contracts, because if 50% is not being bid, then why would you want to work on the 50% that are being bid? I mean, why not focus on the 50% that are being sole sourced and negotiated and just deal with them? And once you have a relationship, I mean, they want to do that anyways because it's easier for everyone, not just for you. It's easier for the contracting officer as well, because now they know you, they trust you, you have a relationship, and they don't want to deal with anybody else because you've already assured them you're going to get this thing done. But until they get to know you and find out who you are and meet you and have meet you outside of a formal environment, then just it's almost impossible for you to kind of build that relationship. All right. All right. So today, it's not even really a lesson. It's just kind of, I was playing off of. I decided to share what I'm doing with you guys, and I thought it'd be. I don't remember ever talking about goal setting, so um, I figured I would share that information with you guys today. So, one of the things, like I said in the beginning, if you missed out, this is today's last live session. I will still be posting videos. I still be posting content, but I won't be going live anymore. I'm going to focus on some other areas of how to, to grow myself personally, and also how to make this thing better. In addition, I am exploring some opportunities with some national organizations to try and roll the program out. It's actually this that was never that was not a goal in my short-term future, in my immediate future, but it's something that that's on the table that I'm looking at exploring. So we'll see what it looks like and how it goes, and what it turns out. So um, something that I do at the end of the year, and I think it's a great practice. I know a lot of the entrepreneurs that I know that are successful, they reflect back on their year, how it went, how did they reach their goals, and so we're just going to talk a little bit about that today. So for me, I go back and I look on my year, and they always say whatever gets measured gets done. So if you're not measuring your activity on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, on a quarterly basis, then it's very difficult to know that you're moving, making progress in your areas. So for me, like I said, I look back and say, was it productive? Did I accomplish the things I set out to accomplish? If not, what happened? And like I said, if you're not measuring your activities, then how do you know you're moving forward or not? How much activity did you work towards your long-term plan? And I'm going to show you guys. I think it's here. So back in 2016, when I first started doing this stuff, these were some of my goals. I actually looked at them, and I want to do 50 videos, 100 podcasts, 50,000 views, 5,000 person email list, and create a free course. And so that was some of my goals. I exceeded the 50 videos. I never did a podcast. I've done well over the 50,000 views. I didn't get to the 5,000 person email list, but I did create my free course. But some of the other things that happened as a result that were not part of my initial goals were, like I said, um, I have I've got national organizations talking to me. I've developed relationships with companies that are going to take me into contract arenas that I've not been familiar with, or areas that I'm not necessarily on my plan. So by just writing down the goals and having them at the top of your mind and going through that exercise, you're going to hit some of those goals. You may not hit others, but there's some things that are going to happen that you may not be able to see, that may take you in some directions that are even beyond what you thought you'd be at or where you'd be or go. So that's just me sharing my experiences. One of the things that I have is I do have what's called a 12-month vision statement, and I write down what's important to me. What are the core values that you make, that do the things that you do that are often not easy, right? So what are some of those core values that make you push through some of those hard tasks to do? What are your 5 big goals for the year? I share it with you mine. What are the 5 most compelling reasons to hit these goals and elevate your life? And then key behaviors I must develop. I'll share with you here. I got this. I don't remember where I got this from, but I basically, where those dashes are, I plugged it in, and it says, for me, when I talked about what are some of the key behaviors I must develop and what I have to sacrifice. So I said, okay, I'm willing to give up nights and weekends, all vacation plans, every Saturday and Sunday, in return for the money that I desire. My plan of action was to look at, and again, I was looking at real estate. So I was looking at 3 to 5 deals a week, make an offer on one a week, buy one a month, finalize my book, um, and then base the success of the launch on my training course, blog, podcast, on government contracts. So I think I did pretty well. Like I said, I have, if we look at making an offer one a week and buying one property a month, that would be 12 properties. And I'm right close to that number already. I did launch my book. I did launch a training course for you guys. I did not launch a podcast, but I did launch the blog and the YouTube channel, which was just the same thing. So again, that's me. That's my experiences, and the same thing can happen for you guys. So let's talk about goal setting. And if you don't have any goals, great place to start. I have, in addition to my 12-month vision statement, and again, I'm a voracious reader. I pulled this information from different places, different books. I don't even know who to give the credit for these things, but I have on here. I have a list for me of 100 life goals, and it just boom, 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 boom. I wrote out 100 life goals, um, and also I have on here what's called a 21 goal category. So we'll talk about that. So for my 100 life goals, it's a wide range of things. Everything that I want to do, from like visiting India, visiting China, to like going to the SBs, something like those award shows and things like that. So that's just a wide range of goals, just to kind of like start checking off the boxes. Like for example, I had on there, visiting Cuba. That was one of my goals, and I've been to Cuba 4 times. But at the time when I wrote it, it wasn't possible to go to Cuba. So, um, and then my 21 goal category. Basically, what I do is I wrote down 3 goals per section. So, and these are the areas that I focused on. What we talked about was relationship, business and career, some fun goals, health and fitness goals, personal goals, contribution and legacy, and then financial goals. And I'll share with you on that. So, under my contribution and legacy, I wrote down, and again, this is back in 2016. Help 100,000 of small business achieve dramatic growth results, impact the lives of millions of people so they can pay it forward and help the next generation like Boy Scouts, and then ensure financial freedom for the next 5 generations. And so those were some of my contribution legacy goals under my three in there. Here's a chart that I want to share with you guys, and this is something that you can use. I put it up there. This one I made based on a Jim Rohn video. As you know, I love Jim Rohn. And like I said, on the left hand side, you got economic things, personal development, and at the top on the columns, you have long range and short term range. So hold on one second, guys. Let me see. Let me see what's going on in the chat room. I'll leave this up so you guys can look over it real quick. All right. What's your book list? We'll be answering email questions. I went through the course. I didn't need a CS, but I've never done any type of business ad. Okay. Tracy, they for some reason they blocked out your. There you go, Tracy. I put you in there. They hid your comment, so I put it back. All right. All right. So you got, yeah. This is an example of a chart that I've used, and then here, reasons to succeed. And one of the things they always says is, okay, you can have goals, you can write down your goals, you can write down your vision statement, all that stuff, but without having enough reasons, you can have plenty of intelligence, talent, and good work ethic, but if you don't have enough reasons, then you won't do the activities. So you need to figure out what are the reasons why you want to succeed and write those down. Again, they're like a magnet that pulls you closer towards your goals. So you have the goals and you know where you're going, but then what are the reasons behind some of those goals? Write down the reasons that you want to succeed at your goals. All right. Now, some examples of reasons to succeed would be, for example, let's say you're tired of people worrying about you financially. Maybe you're tired of people saying how talented you are, but you're still not making the money you want to make. Maybe you want to give away millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars to charity, to your church, to organizations. Whatever the reasons are for you, write those reasons down, because that's what's going to push you through when it's tough, when it's hard, when it's cold, when it's raining. I mean, when I was in Kansas and I was working out there, and I was on this building, and it was icy on the ground, then it was raining, and then the ground when it heated up enough, then it would become mud, and then when it froze up, then it become ice, and so it was all that stuff on there. But I knew, that ultimately long term what my plan was and what my reason was to succeed. And a lot of times that's based on our family. Family is an excellent reason to want to work hard at pulling you towards those goals. And for me, I knew I wanted to help my son. I wanted to help my niece. I have a goal to pay off my parents' house. And so those kind of things is what pulled me through those tough times when people were yelling at me, screaming at me, when people treated me poorly, or I didn't feel like I was being treated fairly. Those are the things that pulled me through. So make sure, above all, that yeah, you're writing down the goals, you're doing you're writing down your vision statement, but write down reasons to succeed. Start there. Put that down on paper, and then look at it from time to time and say, this is why I'm doing this. This is why, even though I'm terrified, I'm going to make this phone call. This is why, even though the last guy told me no, I'm going to try it again. This is why, because, you know, yeah, you may be comfortable living in an efficiency. You may be comfortable living in a one-bedroom apartment, but for your kids, you may want to put them in private school. You may want, you may want to send them to Harvard or Stanford, or you may want to send them to, some elite school now that you can't afford. And so when you're out there and you're debating of, should I call that person? What to say? I don't know what to say. Eric didn't give me all the answers. Let me just wing it. That your daughter her being on your mind is what's going to pull you through, and that's for me, what's always pulled me through, and what's made me take one extra step, commit one additional action, push forward and doing the additional effort that I needed to get past that. If it's not enough to work for yourself, do it for somebody else. Do it for your sick relative. Do it for for a relative who facing some sort of tragic incident. Do it for somebody else. But again, make sure you write down your reasons to succeed. Hold on. And I saw this and I thought it was great. It says, it is critical that you make a lot of money because without it, you are limited to what you can do only by your physical presence. And so now, if you think about that, essentially, um, if you really or truly believe that um, you want to make an impact, and we discussed that last week, savoring life versus making an impact. If you really believe that you want to make an impact, you know that the only way to do it is by leveraging your time and your abilities and your resources. And the only way to do that is by making a lot of money. All right. So that's today's lesson. Remember, like we talked about last week, pain plus reflection equals progress. There's no avoiding pain, especially if you're going after ambitious goals. The challenges you face will strengthen you. If you're not failing, you're not pushing your limits. If you're not pushing your limits, you're not maximizing your potential. All right, so I'm going to turn it over and see what we've got in the room. Um, let's see what we got here. Learn to discipline. Your disappointment is the biggest lesson learned from Jim Rome. Yeah. So I see we've got some more Jim Rome fans in here. Tracy Bird, nothing beats failure but a try. Absolutely. Kiana, without dreams, people perish. That's correct. He says that reasons make the difference. That's right. All right. What else? All right, guys. Anybody else? Like I said, I'm not going anywhere. I saw someone in there that said to consider leaving my Govcon Giants course up there. Unfortunately, like everything, we have to evolve. I have to expand upon it. I have to make it better. I have to improve. So it was a beta version. Um, I'm gonna leave the GovCon Giants. I'm gonna leave the private Facebook and group in place intact. So hopefully, I know the people that are participating in this chat are the same people that are participating in the actual GovCon Giants group. They're the same. They're one and the same. So thank you guys as always. But yeah, I'm gonna leave the group in place. Hopefully, the group will be able to help, and I'm gonna still be active in the group. But the course, I've made a decision to pull it down because I do want to work and improve upon that course. And in order to do so, I've got to. What you probably don't see is that with the course, people are asking me questions. So every time people ask me questions, that disrupts my train of thought, my focus from working on some big picture item. So in order for me to avoid that from happening, I have to pull the course down naturally. I can't tell people to stop asking me questions. I have to pull it down. So if you think about it this way, I'm going to be able to spend more time with the serious people who are this close to getting a contract. I'm going to spend more time with the people who are willing to commit the additional effort out there, right? I could spend more time with you guys to actually help you, cross that bridge. So think about that way. Before I thought I would be serving less people by actually, committing myself to those. But what I realized, and again, that's part of me and my learning and my growth, is that I believe truly that if I can help some of you out there, the ones that are showing me that you're serious, the ones that are showing me committed, the ones that say, look, Eric, we're all in on this, and you've made a commitment, if I can and take you guys over the hump, then I believe that you can also not only be my advocates, but you'll also be able to, like what we have in a Facebook group, help other people by referring information, stories, sharing your experiences with them. And so I would love to have, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 15 people out there who've already done this. They've got the contracts, we've gone through the steps, and they see what it's like, and they've had that experience. So then when someone asks a question, you're like, no, 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 no. That doesn't work like that. Someone asked a question today in the group that asked me, that said, hey, look, they received a phone call from some company saying that you have to pay for their SAM registration. It was. So they said, oh, your SAM registration is not complete. You need to pay a fee. And immediately the members in the group stepped up and said, that's a fraud. That's a scam. And so if I help more of you guys get to that point, then you could then help, disseminate the information to the group, and we can far serve more people that way than I could ever do on my own. So that's the whole idea behind it. Is it's like when you cut a tree back, you cut it back so it can grow even bigger, even larger. So all we're doing is we're just cutting back a little bit. We're trimming back the tree so that we can blossom even more and be even a greater force reckoning with it come 2018. And that's the idea. All right. So you guys already know who you are. You know the people out there. You know who are the committed ones. You know who are the serious ones. You know if you've been reaching out to me. You know if you've been asking questions. Um, and what I don't think what people understand is I've turned down some really exciting, lucrative opportunities um, that are in the millions of dollar range to be able to sit back and be able to do this stuff for you guys. And I think that you would much rather have those examples and those stories than have me come on here and talk to you, a little bit more about a lesson that you may have already heard, or maybe sharing some of the same information about capability statements and some of the things that we've already kind of discussed. Maybe I just scratched the surface of it, but you have the actual understanding, or you have a fundamental understanding. Maybe you don't know the whole thing completely, and I haven't gone through a one-on-one lesson, but it's one of those activities that you should be doing. So I think that it would be much better if I came back and said, and I had, let's see, who's in the chat? Who am I going to pick out as an example? Let's say I had Shawnee, and Shawnee comes on, and Shawnee says, hey, guess what, guys? I worked with Eric. We landed a contract. It was $250,000. We split up 100 grand. I mean, I can't. That to me would be a much better story to paint welcoming in 2018 year, the first quarter. All right. So, does anybody else have any questions? It's 7:02. No. All right. With that, by the way, I think does anyone ask about the book? Oh, do me a favor. Do me a huge favor, please. Listen, if you have purchased the book, I thank you for purchasing the book. If you have not purchased the book, please purchase the book because it's already going. People are asking me some of the same questions that are already in the book. I'm not going to. Uh, what I'm asking for is if you've already purchased it, please go on Amazon and leave me some reviews. I really do need reviews from there. I think I only have 6 reviews, and I'm close to like 100 book purchases, so it doesn't really add up. Less than 10% of people have actually gave reviews. So make sure you guys go on there if you bought the book and you like it. If you don't like it, I understand. But if you do like the book, please go in there and give me a review. Please, that would help me. give back. That would be your way of giving back to me as well. I haven't asked a lot from people out there. I've just been giving of myself, my time, faithfully. I've been committed to doing this for you guys. So the least that you guys could do to help me is to go on Amazon and, well, you could buy the book if you have not bought the book. If you have bought the book, please go on Amazon and give me a review. Again, it's a $12 book. If you buy it on Kindle, I think it's $9.95. The Kindle version is actually better because the Kindle version, you can actually click the link and it'll take you to the actual site. But I do understand some people want a physical book, which I'm okay with that. In fact, I think if you buy the physical book for 11.95, you can get the Kindle version for $2 or 2.99. Amazon has something like that, a program. So if you buy the physical book for 11.95, I think Amazon will sell you the digital one for like $2 or 2.99. Uh, but please, like I said, go out there and give me a 5-star review because you know everyone does not know me, and I still have a way to go. Hey Marie, welcome. I'm glad you joined us, but we're leaving now. Marie Mack is one of the people I was talking about who's committed, who's serious. She has her act together, and I know she's one of the people that I can help serve. She's a great example of someone who I know where she's at in her business and her situation. And so Freddie, he just came on. He's one of those people that I was talking about. Sonny's out there, Natasha's out there. Paige, all you guys already know who you are. So again, yeah. So if you have not purchased the book, please purchase the book. If you have not given me a 5-star review, please go in there and give me a 5-star review. Like I said, it's just paying it for it, guys. I mean, I've spent a year committed to helping you with these videos. People have learned a lot. People have gotten contracts. People have become certified for free. You've saved hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars. So, reciprocate. Show me some love. Pay it back. Again, it's not a lot of money, but it's part of the big picture. All right, it's a circle of life. So, with that, have a happy holidays and Merry Christmas to you guys, and I'll see you soon.